past the clouds, over the dark night. She reached up to the sky of stars and caught the red-hot light of the North Star. Opened the earth, walking with blood-soaked feet. She challenged the whip, the gun, the knife. She challenged the fire, pulled from the bodies of slaves, made into laws, prisons, and courts.
Greetings, and as always, welcome back. Well, the headline reads that Rubio says diplomatic solution for Gaza may not be possible. Really? The U.S. Secretary of State made the comments during a visit to Israel at a press conference with Netanyahu, and this while Israeli sniper details killing Palestinians, including children, waiting for aid. How can the world sit idly by and watch a genocide unfold right before its very eyes? Let's connect some dots and find out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.
Folks, as always, welcome to the Connecting the Dots podcast with Dr. Wilmer Leon, and I am Wilmer Leon. With each show, my guests and I provide insight and analysis into current events and the broader historic context in which most of these events take place. One quick headline before we get to my guest. U.S. workers fired over Charlie Kirk social media posts. United Airlines, NASDAQ, The Washington Post, and others dismiss employees in aftermath of conservative flamethrowers' murder. Dozens of U.S. workers, ranging from teachers to Secret Service agents, have been fired over statements about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. As conservatives call for retribution for the activist's death, in the aftermath of Kirk's murder, some conservatives, U.S. officials, and activists encourage people to report those who celebrated the killings on social media. When you see someone celebrating Charlie's murder, call them out, said J.D. Vance while hosting Kirk's podcast on Monday. He said, and hell, call their employer. Two things quickly. One, conservatives call for retribution. Retribution against whom and for, and I think it's whom, and my guest will straighten me out because I think he has a PhD in English. Whom and for what? All reports are that Kirk's assassin was a lone wolf, had no political designation, was not affiliated with a party, even though they say he had his politics had shifted to the left. So this discussion about the radical left from Donald Trump and I think Kirk's wife was talking about the evildoers. Who are these people? Who are these evildoers when the guy was acting as a lone wolf? And then encouraging people who have celebrated the killing. how do you define celebrating the killing? I wrote, and my guest has written fairly lengthy pieces on this issue, neither of which are celebrating the killing, but are definitely challenging the narrative, the lack of context, and the framework around which this issue is being discussed. Just wanted to make those couple points. On today's episode, the issue before us is an independent United Nations inquiry has concluded for the first time that Israel has committed genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, and that the country's top leaders have incited genocide in what is described as the most authoritative UN finding to date. Just two quick points there. One is, duh, and the other one is, and what has taken you so long to get to this point? My guest is the polemicist. His work is at Substack. He is an independent journalist. Dr. Jim Kavanaugh, as always, sir, welcome back.
As always, thank you for having me, Wilmer. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Hadn't initially planned to discuss this, but I did notice your piece, Charlie's Devils, and I wrote a piece, Charlie Kirk's Racist, Xenophobic Rhetoric is Not Protected Speech. So if you want to take a minute or two, I'll ask you, lay out your argument in the piece that you have at Substack.
Well, the argument is, first of all, I got to say, I wasn't aware of Charlie Kirk before this. And I think a lot of people in the United States weren't aware of Charlie Kirk before this. And it was amazing to me how quickly and thoroughly this whole campaign of canonization of Charlie Kirk began. And it really is a campaign that's demanding that you participate in the canonization of Charlie Kirk. You can't have any doubts. You can't have any nuance about it whatsoever. And it's kind of crazy. So, from my personal point of view, I don't really want to talk about Charlie Kirk because I didn't care about him beforehand, and I don't care about him now. Maybe I should have, because he had an influence I wasn't quite aware of. But my general point is, this whole thing really isn't about Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk is an excuse to inaugurate a system of repression against the left and against anti-Zionists, particularly. That's been in the, you can see that this huge media-wide campaign of sanctifying Charlie Kirk was prepared and ready to go for somebody. They were looking for an excuse to get this going. And there's the general target, which they're speaking up very clearly, which is the left, by which they mean I don't know what.
Right.
Because the left, as we take it, is not really very strong, powerful in this country. What they mean is the Democratic left or the LGBTQ left or whatever. That's a whole other issue. But they're after the left in general because they're afraid that down the road, they're afraid of a populist revolt that takes on leftist tinges and that is led or influenced by the left and becomes anti-capitalist. But immediately, what they're immediately afraid of, that anti-capitalist populist revolt is not something they're worried about urgently or immediately. But what they are urgently and immediately afraid of is the turning away of the American population and of the young Republican population turning away from support of Israel. And that's what was going on with Charlie Kirk, who was a Zionist and a staunch Zionist, but who was beginning to question and was apparently under a lot of pressure and was feeling the pressure and was allowing anti-Zionist voices from the right, Tucker Carlson, Dave Smith, etc., into his Turning Point USA events. And this is the demographic that the Israelis and the Zionists are definitely afraid of. They are turning against Israel. Only 25% or 20-some% of young Republicans under 35 support Israel. And this is something they can't have. So they want to use Charlie Kirk's death to get to create him as an angel. Literally, if you see in my article, I have this video in there of Charlie Kirk literally as an angel, as what I call the co-joined Zionist twin of Jesus, to stop the hemorrhaging of support on the right from away from Israel. So that, I think, we have to see what's happening here. It's kind of silly at this point to argue about Charlie. From my point of view, I'm not interested in arguing about Charlie Kirk. He's dead.
Correct.
What you're arguing about now is the ghost of Charlie Kirk that's being used and what it's being used for. And that's being used to foment a campaign of repression, which is cancel culture repression backed by the state, much more powerful, right? And at least in the way it's being presented and inaugurated right now than what we talked about, the silliness of the quote unquote left wing cancel culture 4 or 5 years ago. But this is now an accelerated version of that is urgently being targeted against anti-Zionists and in the long run being targeted against the left in general, whatever that means. So that's what we have to think about. I see this, we have to see that Charlie Kirk, nobody believed that Charlie Kirk was a national martyr on the order of JFK and MLK. I just saw a meme today with Charlie Kirk, JFK, and MLK. Nobody believed Charlie Kirk was that important. Even people like Charlie Kirk didn't think, oh, this guy should be, should lay in state, etc. Really, the people who are pushing this, the political people who are pushing this now are people who don't care any more about Charlie Kirk than I do. They care about getting the job done of shutting down the anti-Zionist and leftist movements in this country.
And so, did you read my piece?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So my approach to this is one, there are two elements of this. One is the human element and the other is the political element. And on the human element side, you can't condone murder. Period, full stop, end of sentence. On the political side of this, you can't sanctify a speaker or deify a speaker without analyzing the content of their speech. To me, if you try to do that, you're intellectually dishonest. You're a hypocrite. As I've listened to so much of this ad nauseum so-called analysis of Charlie Kirk through mainstream networks, I don't hear anybody talking about the content of the speech. They just want to say he was assassinated for exercising his First Amendment right. But not all speech is protected speech. So I think there should be some deeper analysis to this. And this is not I am looking at cause and effect. What is Newton's third law of motion? For every action, there is equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah.
That's physics. That's physics. He was an incredibly intolerant individual, and I'll use that to be kind. He ran up against someone even more intolerant than he was. And when you create this kind of environment, when you promote this kind of environment, when you revel in this kind of environment, then these are the types of things you can set up for yourself. And I'm not blaming the victim here. This is cause and effect. So that's why Oliver Wendell Holmes told us you cannot wrongly cry fire in a crowded theater. And what Charlie Kirk was doing was wrongly crying fire in our political theater. And I don't think that you can have an intellectually honest discussion about this unless you explore those avenues as well.
Well, yeah. Look, nobody has to nobody has to join in the sanctification of Charlie Kirk. This, as you say, you're going to be intellectually honest and politically honest about what you thought about Charlie Kirk. I looked at some of the things he said, which I hadn't seen beforehand, and I think he was racist and, a fool and a pernicious influence. And he had a great influence apparently on young people. And I oppose him politically, and on his racial politics and on his Zionist politics and on a lot of things. And I think he had a pernicious influence. I do not agree with you. and yes, one has to realize that when you get in a situation of political debate and in a situation that's tense, you're likely to get reactions. But I do not agree with you that what he was saying was not protected speech. It was protected speech. And from my point of view, and the Oliver Wendell Holmes quote about not crying,
wrongly crying fire in the crowd theater,
or not crying, that was in the case which he was sending Eugene Debs to jail for protesting the First World War. And this is part of the problem. We are in a situation, we've always been for many years. Look, Malcolm X, no, any means necessary. You can, in terms of the legal constitutional issues, the Supreme Court has been very clear, and it's the only thing that's forbidden is speech that is imminently threatening violence or danger. I can get up and say, I want all short people to be exterminated. That's protected speech, okay? And if you want to say I shouldn't be surprised if some short person comes and shoots me,
that's my point.
That's absolutely right. I may not be surprised with that, but I think that in the situation we're living in, it is very dangerous to say that. You might say maybe I should expect that, but it's very dangerous to say, well, that's just the stuff that's going to go on. That's not a good idea, and so. Because until and unless you're in a revolutionary situation where there really is armed conflict, and when you're in a revolutionary situation, you shut down the speech of the other side. You shut down their rights. Okay? We're not in a revolutionary situation, and the left is in no position to kind of pretend that they are. Okay,
correct.
So if you shut down, start going around shooting the people who say horrible, nasty things. Because from your point of view, they're horrible and nasty and dangerous to society. Well, other people are going to do that too. So I'm not and I think we have to. I want to accept the idea that in the normal, in the kind of political situation we're in a non-revolutionary situation, you have to accept that a lot of people can say a lot of nasty things, and you fight them back with saying the right thing and challenging them. And look, Charlie Kirk was 22 years old. He was 32. He was thinking things through in a way that was not acceptable to to the people who supported him. The reason he got influential is because he had a lot of money behind him from the time he was 18. But he was challenging the people who were giving him that money. He was challenging his own his own commitments. Apparently, he was thinking of converting to Catholicism. So people at 22 years old don't necessarily stay the way they are. And I knew everything when I was 22, absolutely did. And I learned some things that were very different when I was 32 and 42 and 52, et cetera. So, I don't think, and just, so that's, Charlie Kirk should have been dealt with discourse. And, he wasn't counting on shooting people. And he was, and to say, oh, people who are, speech is violence. This is exactly what, people said about the left in the 60s and the 70s and the 90s. And that's what's going on. That what was going on with the Biden administration started this domestic terrorism, speech is violence. That's a dangerous road to go down. And we're not going to win anything by that in the context that we're in right now anyway. So that's my position on that.
All right. As we look at where we are right now, Rubio saying diplomatic solution for Gaza may not be possible. and the UN now comes out and validates what we all have known for way too long and been saying. This is genocide. Dr. Jim Kavanaugh, where are we here? Your thoughts on these most recent, this most recent escalation of recent escalations.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible situation. Look, if this isn't genocide, nothing is. We've seen it. They're deliberately killing children. They're starving children to death. They're deliberately targeting. They're going around, one day they'll shoot the kids in the genitals. The next day they'll shoot them in the heart. The next day they'll shoot them in the head. So the IDF is going around target practicing with children. And this is killing doctors and journalists, waiting till they get home. So they kill them with their families. This is blowing up. They've blown up every building. Now they're in Gaza City. That's the last.
Motion detected at your front door.
Sorry, this is I have to do this on my phone because my thing wasn't working. But anyway, it's just a destruction of the Palestinian people. But this was obvious from the outset. Day one, Netanyahu got up and said, "This is Amalek." That is the biblical injunction to go and slaughter the Amalek people, all of them, men, women, children, and animals. So this was a genocidal command for a genocidal action to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've been saying since day two of this, since October 9th, October 10th, this is not going to be solved diplomatically. The Israelis have no interest in the hostages. One of the things I was saying is precisely the people who are promoting this Charlie Kirk have as much interest in real Charlie Kirk as Netanyahu does in the hostages. This is not about that. This is about
the hostages are in the way as far as Netanyahu is concerned.
They want the hostages to be out of the way. They prefer. They would kill the hostages. That's their ethic. They kill the hostages people rather than letting me take them hostages.
Motion detected at your front door.
Sorry. This is what this is going to be settled by, and is being settled by, and has almost come to the end of being settled by, is force. The Israelis are going to, by deadly force, kill and expel all the Palestinians in Gaza, and that's what they're doing. Nobody is stopping them from doing it. It is not going to be stopped. It's nice that the UN came around and said what they said. It's nice that the IGJ said what they said a year ago. It's nice that blah 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 said what they say. But until and unless there's military force used to stop Israel from doing what it's doing, to bring in humanitarian aid and reconstruction aid to Gaza against the will of the Israelis and the Americans, and that's why in this context, Yusrael, I call it Yusrael. It's a single strategic entity. It's not Israel doing this alone. It's a combined force of the United States and Israel. Israel couldn't do it for a minute. They say it every time without American help. And so this is, until someone comes in and challenges militarily the force, says we're coming in by force to Gaza. We're not attacking Israel. We're coming in to Gaza. But if you try to stop us, we will fight you. And until and unless you do that, the Gazans are going to be killed and expelled. And I don't see it stopping. And the horror for me, and this is the problem for the world, not a single country in the world, and there's no group of countries, all these countries that are actually creating another multipolar world in East Asia and Asia, etc., they're still allowing the United States to set the terms in the Middle East. Okay, we're going to create this other world here. We're not going to let you set the terms for us in Asia or Europe or whatever, but we will let you set the terms in the Middle East because we know that you and the Israelis have nuclear weapons, and we don't really want to risk ourselves getting into that fight because it doesn't really mean that much to us. The Palestinian people don't really mean. Those countries are being foolish because look at certainly the Arab countries. Look at the Arab countries. Israel's going after every Arab country, and sooner or later someone's going to have to either confront this because they'll be threatened by it. Even China, even Russia, even Turkey, they're going to be threatened by it in some way. And Israel's on a tear, and they have said, and there was no reason ever from October 7th till now to think anything else was going on. We are going to do whatever we want. We have the backing of the United States to do whatever we want, and we don't care what anybody says, what the UN says, what ICJ says, what Jim Kavanaugh says, what, Francesca Albanese says. Francesca Albanese, wonderful woman. We don't care what anybody says. We don't care what anybody thinks. You can hate us all you want. We're going to have Gaza, and the Palestinians will be out. And not just Gaza, the West Bank. This is now the Israelis going all in on finishing 48, which was their slogan for years. We're going to finish 48. This is what's been going on since 1948. This is what happened in 1948. You're watching it. And we're going to finish it. And we're going to finish it by getting rid of the Palestinians from Gaza, getting rid of the Palestinians from the West Bank, annexing whatever we want. And we dare you to stop us. Here we are. What are you going to do about it? Talk. What are you doing? And nobody who has the power and could effectively intervene is doing anything about it. So I'm afraid that, maybe in a year from now, Israel's going down. Sure, Israel is undermining itself very powerfully. And the long term for Israel is not good, but there's no long term for the Palestinian people and the people of Gaza. They're not, going to be there 6 months from now, 18 months from now. Where are the people of Gaza going to be? They'll be dead or in another country, or have a small remnant of them living as subjugated people in some kind of Gaza resort.
Let me go back to a point that we were just discussing, Charlie Kirk, just for this 1 second, because somebody just said here, oh, Rod Luther, wake up, Dr. Leon. Tyler Robinson probably did not kill Charlie Kirk. Okay, Tyler, when you are, Rod, when you are able to present evidence to me to the contrary, be more than happy to entertain it. But until then, and I'm glad you at least said probably. Until then, until then. Now I have to take issue with you, Jim Kavanaugh, because you said that they don't listen to Jim Kavanaugh, and we know everybody listens to Jim Kavanaugh. So you stand corrected on that point. This article is it's in antiwar.com. Israeli sniper details killing Palestinians, including children. I'm going to read 2 quick paragraphs here. Quote, it started about 2 months ago, the soldier who went by a pseudonym told the Israeli paper. This is an interview with Haaretz. And he says, this deals with not the impact it's having on the Palestinians. This article is about the mental toll that this sniper operation is having on IDF soldiers. Every day we have the same mission to secure the humanitarian aid in the northern Gaza Strip. He says, the soldiers begin their day at 3:30 a.m. when they set up sniper positions near where the aid trucks arrive to unload their contents. He said that Gaza residents try to move forward to get a good spot in line, often crossing an invisible line set by the IDF. Quote, a line that if they cross it, I can shoot them, this soldier says. It's like a game of cat and mouse. They try to come from a different direction every time, and I'm there with a sniper rifle, and the officers are yelling at me, take him down, take him down. I fire 50 to 60 bullets every day. I've stopped counting kills. I have no idea how many I've killed. A lot. Children. But two things. One, this was an interview in Haaretz, and for those that don't know, that's a liberal Jewish newspaper. So I think it's quite telling that Haaretz would report this to the degree that they have. But again, the focus of the article is not the horrific genocide being imposed upon the Palestinians. This is the impact that this horror is having on their own soldiers. Yeah. Dr. Jim Kavanaugh.
Yeah, it's the famous. Do you have my video?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Something is wrong with the video. I don't know.
Oh, no. Yeah, we hear you. Go ahead.
All right. It's the famous shooting and crying thing. Yeah. Oh, Joe Golda Meir said this once. The worst thing the Palestinians do for us is making us kill them so that we feel so bad about it. You know, this is absurd. And it's one of the things the Americans do too. We go in these wars and kill 1 million people or 500,000 people, and 5 years later make a movie about how some soldier on the internet, some American soldiers feel so bad and has such a hard time with it psychologically. So this is a well-known trope, and it's terrible. But that situation that's described in that article, where they have the American Aguilar, who was part of this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, describes this, how the people kind of come en masse to get this food, and they're going through this winding maze, and if they step out to the wrong spot, they're going to get killed, but nobody tells them that. And the guy said to them, "These Israelis, why don't you just put a sign up, go this way rather than that way?" And they said, "Oh, that takes too much, that costs too much money. We'd rather just," they're using live gunfire to kind of control the movement of the crowd.
That's crowd control.
Yeah, it's absolutely horrifying and monstrous, and nobody can think this is something reasonable. I mean, this is just murder. I mean, mass murder, because they think the Palestinians are subhuman. They're just not as important as they are. This is the underlying, unavoidable premise of all colonialism, which is what this is that the colonial subjects are just not as important people as you are. Their job is to get out of the way, and if they don't get out of the way and don't do what you want, then we can kill them. So, it's really a horrible situation. I'm going to try and fix this. I don't know why the camera isn't working now. There. Is that it? No. Go ahead.
There's another interesting piece here, which is, to me, incredibly telling. Netanyahu says Trump invited him to visit the White House for the 4th time this year. He said yesterday that Trump has invited him to visit the White House, which would mark the Israeli leader's 4th visit to Washington this year, as the administration continues to strongly back the genocidal war in Gaza. I find this interesting because we know the global dynamic of a White House visit. And some of the chatter when Trump and Putin met in Alaska, there were some mainstream so-called analysts that were saying, "Oh, Donald Trump never should have done this because his meeting with Putin elevates Putin's stature on the international stage, as though nobody knows who Vladimir Putin is." Yeah. But what Trump is doing here is not elevating Netanyahu's status. What he's doing is he is normalizing and humanizing genocide.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Look, everybody hates Netanyahu. Look, this is what I said about Trump in 2016, but it's much worse now. The whether it's positive or not, one of the Trump effects is that it's lipstick's off the pig. He's not making any pretense. The United States is not making any pretense of being an honest broker between the Palestinians and the Israelis now. Rubio goes, they all go to Israel, and they all kiss the wall, and they all participate in these religious ceremonies. Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't go to church when he comes here in the United States. And in terms of Netanyahu coming here, I mean, that was, we saw Trump bragging 2 years ago about how the Adelsons were practically living in the White House, and he did everything they wanted, and he got ahead of them and tried to anticipate their needs. So you had his Zionist donors controlling them, and he was telling you that. And one of the things that apparently Charlie Kirk, but certainly a lot of other people are saying is, nobody likes Netanyahu. And everybody is saying, even, people in the Trump administration, that Trump is afraid of Netanyahu, and Netanyahu pulls the strings on Trump. And Netanyahu comes here and kind of pressures Trump to do what he wants to do. And Trump is a guy who's amenable to pressure, especially pressure from the $100 million donors. And, he doesn't really know very much. God, watching Trump talk, it's like, now you see, we're in the mental incompetence problem again. But so Trump gets pushed around, and Netanyahu 4 times. I mean, he's been to the White House more than,
more than Donald Trump.
More than, I've seen my child, my son in the past year. So it's crazy. But you're watching this, and this is what people are getting fed up with. People are saying, and again, what I say is really, and it's right-wing MAGA populists, maybe even more than Democratic liberals, who are saying, we're fed up with going to war. We see now that all of these wars, these Middle Eastern wars, Iraq, Syria, Libya, all of this stuff was for Israel, and that's what it was for. And we see now that we don't want to go to war with Iran. Apparently, Charlie Kirk called up Trump and told him, don't go to war with Iran. Trump berated him. And we don't want to go with Iran. We don't want any more of these wars. That's what we voted for. We voted for no more foreign wars. And we see, hey, maybe Israel was involved in the JFK assassination, and Israel's involved in maybe Israel's involved in the Mossad operation. Maybe they've got something on Trump. So you've got people on the right now going to, to the position of, we're going to be critical of Israel. We're not going to let ourselves be we want America first. And this is a sea change in the United States. As I said, again, 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, the wall of anti-Zionism, the wall protecting Zionism, protecting anybody from saying anything anti-Zionist, not just critical of this or that policy of Israel, but we see there's a huge problem with that. That wall has been breached. And that's what they want to close. They want to close it back up again. And it's going to be very hard, because you can't do it when you're seeing what's going on in Gaza every day. And you can't do it when you see the president of Israel, the prime minister of Israel, coming here and telling Donald Trump, look at this whole thing with the attack on Qatar, which Trump says he didn't know about. Right. Well, that's not true. The Israelis have said, yeah, Netanyahu called him like 10 minutes before the jets took off, but they said he wouldn't have done it if Trump had stopped him. But Trump is going around saying, well, I didn't know about it. And the Israelis are kind of letting him get away with that because they don't want to make things look bad for him. But whether he did or didn't, I mean, which is worse?
Right. I was just going to ask the same question.
Stop them, or that they just did it, whether you liked it or not. And at the end of the day, they know they can do it, because really the story as put out by the Israelis is, we told him about it, but he didn't say anything about it. He wasn't ever going to stop us from doing it. So this is the problem we have now. The United States people of the United States have to face it. And I'll ally with anybody, to stop, to turn the tide on American support for Zionism in Israel. It is extremely important for the United States. It's extremely important for the whole world. The region is going to be up in flames. There's going to be another attack on Iran. It's going to be worse. They want to get rid of Iran. They want to do to Iran what they did to Iraq and Syria and Libya. And the Israelis are hell-bent on it. And Donald Trump does not have the gumption, the political strength or the personal strength to stop them. I don't believe. So this is what we're facing. And we're seeing the signs of it all over the place. And a lot of people are sick of it. They're sick of it. People on the right, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. I saw Candace Owens today. I'm sick of this. And so, people on the left certainly should be, and a lot of them are, but we got to speak up loudly and clearly. This is a horror show, and we have no right. The United States of America has no right to talk to anybody about human rights or democracy. That is absolutely clear. Look at them. Also, I mean, it's minor compared to what's going on in Israel now, but it's a sign of the blatant imperialism. Just look at them just blow up boats that are anywhere near Venezuela, because we stay there.
I want to get to that. I want to get to that in a minute.
So the Israelis determine who's everybody's Hamas, the Israelis, and we'll go along with anything they say about that. And the Americans now, everybody's a drug dealer, so we can blow them up. It's just nuts. But this is where we're at as a country and as a world, and we got to deal with it. There's no more time to let yourself get fooled by this. Democrats were fooled by Biden and by his cancel culture and his Zionism and his censorship, and the MAGA base, the Republican MAGA populists have been fooled by Trump. And if they don't recognize it, they have the same problem. They deserve to be told that and to be castigated for it, just like we castigated the Democrats about Biden and his camp.
Fooled is a great point, and that takes me to Kevin Baptiste's $10 super sticker. Kevin, thank you very much. Mr. Jim, could you speak to the fact that usurals control of the lexicon, i.e., defining what anti-Semitism is, what genocide is, and how that plays out here at home?
Well, the genocide thing is interesting because there are institutions and there's a body of work, a body of academic work and political work that defines genocide. Mm-hmm. And there are criteria for that. And as I say, Bernie Sanders wants to say, I don't want to use the genocide. That's a semantic argument. Guess what? Okay, you don't want to use genocide here, then stop using that word altogether. Because if this isn't genocide, mm-hmm. nothing is. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to say, I don't want, if it's just a matter of the word, stop using the word, but I don't want to hear you use that word about the Holocaust or about anything else. Because if this isn't a genocide by the same token as the Holocaust was, then you're being phony about the use of the word. But there is a body of international academic and political work that the UN used to make this determination. Now, these other terms, it's a very good point. Who determines the meaning of a term? Terms like terrorism. And that's what I said about Donald Trump before. He got up and said, I'm in favor of free speech, but we're going to crack down on terrorism. Well, this is, Ronald Reagan said it, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, and that's a term that, like, he replaced Biden's misinformation with the word terrorism. This is what we're going to go after. This is what we're going to censor. Anybody who supports terrorism. Well, Nelson Mandela was a terrorist until 1991 or something, right? According to the United States government. Mm-hmm. And again, this is my point. American citizen, I have the right to politically support groups that the United States government calls terrorists, like the African National Congress and like Hamas. I have the right to support them politically. You can stop me from giving them money or arms, materially supporting them. But for me to say, I think I'm in favor of Hamas defeating Israel, and I am, that's protected speech. And the person who says I'm in favor of Israel supporting Hamas that's protected speech. And there's no political force in the world that's been prouder to define itself as terrorist than Zionism. One of the prime ministers of Israel said, I'm the father of terrorism in the modern world. And another one said, Zionism is perfectly compatible with Jewish values, and we have to use it when we need to. And that's Menachem Begin and Yitzhak Shamir. They were Zionist terrorists who killed innocent people and killed politicians, Count Bernadotte, who had saved Jews during the Holocaust, but he came to be an honest broker, negotiator in Palestine, and they killed him for that. So terrorism is a malleable word that's used to say, the people and political forces in the world that we disfavor, that we, the Americans and the Israelis, disfavor. And so, again, there's a fight over that. The fight over what the meaning of words is. That's part of the political fight. Who gets to determine the meaning of words? Who gets to impose? Who gets to impose sanctions, whether they be cancel culture or criminal sanctions on people who support people or groups that I call terrorist or genocidal or whatever. So this is a fight we have. That's the debate we have, and it's a little. But in terms of genocide, there are well-established common principles and criteria for what constitutes genocide. And if what Israel's doing in Palestine, in Gaza, isn't it, nothing is. And in terms of other terms, well, we have that fight. But even if we have that fight, everybody in this country has the right to politically support anything that anybody calls terrorism or drug dealers or whatever. If I want to say I support Tren Dagwa because I think it's a great gang, or the gangs in Haiti, then that's political support, and people have the right to do that. And Trump announced before he got into office, I'm going to use the term terrorism to crack down on people. And that's what he's doing. Domestic terrorism. Biden invented it. They did it with the January 6 people. Oh, these are terrorists, they're seditionists, they're domestic terrorists. You know, that was baloney then. And now Trump's going to use that and accelerate it and use it against everybody on the left. We're going to go after all the organizations on the left, all because they're terrorists, because they support terrorism. That's what it's going to be. So, you know, we got to be clear about this and fight it and not put up with it for a second. I dare anybody to come after me because I say I hope that Hamas defeats the IDF. I don't necessarily mean I like Hamas, the greatest thing since sliced bread, but there's a fight. There's a fight that is one side or other is going to win, and it's a fight that has to be that the primary contradiction there is the colonialism, and the anti-colonial powers deserve to win that fight, just like they deserve to win it in South Africa, and just like they deserve to win it in Algeria. You know, they're not because the FLN in Algeria did everything right or didn't do horrible things, or the ANC didn't do horrible things that, you know, we shouldn't like. But that was the fight was who's going to control this country? Is it going to be the French? Is it going to be the white colonialism, white apartheid? Is it going to be Jewish supremacy in a cousin of white supremacy in Palestine? And everybody has the right to take, in the United States, to take a position on one side or the other. People are 100% taking the position of supporting what do you call it, a genocide or not, the mass slaughter that the Israeli IDF is doing in Israel, which is undeniably, they get up and announce that they're there to kill and starve and drive the Palestinians out. There's no doubt about that. You can't have any, it's bad faith to pretend that there's any doubt about that. Whether you call it genocide or not, it's mass slaughter and ethnic cleansing and forcing people, killing and expelling as many Palestinians as you can.
To Kevin's point, the power to define is the power to control. And that's what we see playing itself out here. And I don't really have too much to add. Jim was quite clear and correct.
But that's what they're fighting against now. That's what they want, because there are people challenging their discourse and their definition, and people like us, etc. And they want to shut that down. And that right about Israel, but in the long term about other things too.
Well, and that's the point I was just going to get to, is they're losing the argument. And who would have thought? I'll say, even 5 years ago, when we were looking at the BDS campaign, boycott, divest, and sanction campaign, who would have thought 5 years ago, when that seemed to be on the wane, that we would now that somebody could call you anti-Semitic and you would say, "Shut up."
Yeah.
Or somebody would say, yeah, you're anti-Semitic, or you're, and you'd say, no, you don't understand the terminology here. Let me explain to you. I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm anti-Zionist. And let me explain to you what that language represents. We 5 years ago, 3 years ago, we would not have expected to have, and who would have thought, when you look at the protests that took place, for example, at Columbia, that there would be so many Jewish students that were standing on the side of the Palestinians. They're losing the argument. I'd like to see them losing the war to the degree that they're losing the argument.
That's the problem. That's a crucial point. Look, most Jews most of the Zionists in the world are not Jews by a factor of 10 at least.
Not all Zionists are Jews, and not all Jews
more Christian Zionists than Jewish Zionists. Many of the best anti-Zionists in the world are Jews, and they are at the forefront of anti-Zionist movements now, and that's clear. And so this this is a phony line of argument. Okay, there's nothing intrinsically necessary connection between Judaism and Zionism, but that was presumed until, as you say, 3 years ago, and it is still presumed by probably, although it's changing, a majority of Jews in the United States. But they have to deal with that. It's like white people thinking, "Oh, I got to be a white supremacist." No, you don't. You know, Jews don't have to be Zionists. And there's many, many Jews, as you say, they are in the forefront of the pro-Palestinian struggles here in Great Britain. Look at them; they're arresting Holocaust survivors in Great Britain, 80-year-old, 90-year-old, for standing in the street with a sign saying, "I oppose genocide and I support Palestine action." You know, this is absurd. This is ridiculous, and it's losing its power, as you say. The charge, anti-Semite, blood libel, Holocaust. No, forget it. That worked. That used to work. We're not playing that game anymore. You know, we're not buying it. And it's very dangerous, because there is a danger that real anti-Semitism will ride in on the back of this. And, you know, but this is like, you know, if you're a white person and you don't want you don't want non-white people to hate you, then you say, "I'm against apartheid. I hope the ANC wins that battle," whatever means necessary. And you got to be clear about that. So that's the issue now, and we're all in it. And it has become, as you say, you know, over the past couple of years, suddenly people see things more clearly. And among the young American Jews, that's what they're terrified of. The Zionists are terrified. They lose young American Jews. They lose the American support. It's over. And they are losing that, although not on the political level yet. And I don't know when it's going to happen, but they're certainly losing it on the popular level, even among the Jewish population.
Final point, and just wanted to get your take on this. I've been asking guests this question now that I'm reading stories. We're getting closer to a war with Venezuela. What do you see? Is this and I know I'm about to ask you to define or give me insight into total insanity, which is Donald Trump's mind. But you're smart enough to do it. Is this just another another distraction that he sees he's lost Ukraine? And so now, once again, it's another shiny bauble that they're trying to distract us by. Oh, you know what? I've lost this war in Ukraine. I know. Let me go start a war in Venezuela. Yeah. Is that what this is?
It may very well be. Look, it may be a head fake. It may be. I don't know what the heck it is. I wrote about it when there was in 2018-19, when they had the whole Juan Guaido thing, which they're still trying to pull off. You know, and I thought there'd be a war then. And one of the things I said was Venezuela is kind of the Goldilocks target. You know, Venezuela is not a small country, not an unimportant country. It's got the largest oil reserves in the world, so it's important enough to take to fight over. And at the same time, it's small enough. Venezuela isn't going to stop the United States from coming in and forcing a coup. Let's put it that way. They're not going to defeat the United States militarily, although they will be able to. That made me a little different now. They will be able to set up a guerrilla camp. The Americans will be like they were in Iraq. Let's put it that way.
It'll be an ugly fight. Yeah,
it'll be an ugly fight. But so it's one of these things. But they like this. It's like Grenada and Panama. We got to pick this little easy picking fruit before we go to the big fight against Iraq. So on the one hand, this is the amuse-bouche. This is the Goldilocks target before we get in that big fight against Iran. So we got to have a victory that we can make it look like, look how easy it is for us to win. It's not going to be that easy this time in Venezuela.
No, because Maduro has an armed militia, and this is the type of urban / guerrilla warfare the United States does not do well at all. And the other element of this is the motivation. Those folks in Venezuela are committed to the Chavista revolution, and they're gonna fight you till the last dog dies. And So we can send missiles into Venezuela all day. But at some point, as Minister Farrakhan said about Iraq, at some point, you can't win this with your technology.
Yep.
You're going to have to bring your soldiers in here. And when you do, they're going to deal with you.
Yep.
So
it was very important that he armed the people and set up the militias. And that has created a different situation than 2018-19. And the Americans are going to be killed. American soldiers start getting killed, then the game changes, because they think they can do something that'll be kind of cost-free in terms of American lives. But as you say, the other element of this is, okay, we're not going to defeat Russia in Iran. Okay, Vlad, Iran's your backyard. We're not going to challenge you. But look, this is our backyard. We can still do something in our backyard, and watch us, prove how powerful. Watch me prove how strong I am here. And our backyard is bigger than your backyard. This is that kind of thing may very well be going on in Trump's head. I'm going to prove that, even though we got to watch Russia defeat Ukraine, we'll have a win for ourselves. It'll show us how powerful we are and reinstitute the Monroe Doctrine, et cetera, et cetera. So that very well could be and it certainly is being used by the people who want war with Iran to promote it in Trump's brain.
Dr. Jim Kavanaugh, as always. Hey, folks, it's a great piece. The piece in Substack before the Charlie's Devils piece. Didn't you have a piece on I know what it was. It was the piece from Press TV on what was happening in Gaza. Great work as always, Dr. Jim Kavanaugh. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Please visit my Substack.
All right. Hey, folks. Well, I want to thank you all so much for joining the discussion. Share the show. And again, really, really are in need of contributions here, particularly through Patreon. And again, because this isn't cheap, and we need to keep this thing moving. Because trust me, folks, things are going to get a hell of a lot better a hell of a lot worse before they get better. And you're going to need access to people like Dr. Jim Kavanaugh through shows like this in order for you to keep straight. So, freedom ain't free. So let's be sure we cover that. Thank you all so much for listening. New episode tomorrow. Nico House is going to join us tomorrow. Please follow, subscribe, leave a review, share the show. This is where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge, and talk without analysis is just chatter. And we don't chatter here on Connecting the Dots. See y'all tomorrow. Until then, I am Dr. Wilmer Leon. Peace. I'm out.
Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon, where the analysis of politics, culture, and history converge.